You feel good when you wear nice clothing. That's the creative and positive part of fashion. But it can be like mass production of clothing like Shein and Fashion Nova, like very mediocre quality clothes that you can only wear a couple times and it breaks apart and it's plastic. That's not something that I want to be part of.
The water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secrets.
All right.
We're live.
Namu, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet y'all.
We met Namu at BetaWorks, which is, we were just chatting about what a great venture fund studio place in New York. And yeah, we'd love to learn more about your first-time entrepreneur. And actually, if we could back up a bit, tell us the story of Namu. Where are you from? Where were you born?
Thank you for having me, Flavio and Taylor. I'm Namu Park. I'm the founder and CEO of the Sloth. To tell you a little bit about my story, I am born in America, surprise, but I grew up in South Korea, so I speak Korean fluently. My mom sent me back to study English in America when I was about 14. I went to high school in Michigan. I said to my mom, I cannot live in Michigan anymore. And I came
We
to
have a lot of
college in
Michigan
New York.
listeners, so.
Oh, wow, that's great. I love Michigan. However, I went to school here and I worked in finance. I had a quarter life crisis. I wanted to do something different, and that's how I forayed my way into tech.
Wait, what's a quarter life crisis?
So, about 25, you think you did everything that you're supposed to do and realize, oh, this is not what I actually want to do. I'm not happy with my job. What's the point of my life? And you want to find out and explore. You've never heard of quarter life crisis?
No.
You've
no.
never had any? Oh, wow.
Had it. I
Yeah,
just
tell
didn't.
me
You just didn't know.
What? Where were you at before? What was the job?
I worked as a distressed credit valuation analyst for Citigroup.
Oh, wow.
So valuing companies. Yeah, very distressed.
So what was the moment? That must be a tough job. Was there a moment where you were like, I'm done? Or what changed your mindset?
For me, something like that kind of slowly dawned on me, and you think there's got to be something better. It's not just one moment like that happens, but I think it's a built up like moments of I feel like I can do something else. Something's got to be out there. Like when you work in finance, you work with numbers, but mostly you look at Excel and you don't work with other people. And when you look at the world, you're like, I wonder who made that. I wonder who's behind this brand and this product. And I was always curious. So
What are some of those ideas or products or brands that you looked at back then?
back in the days, tech was big, but not as big as like it was. It's not, I'm not like 50 years old, but what are some companies? And I think just like at the time, D2C brands were really big, like Casper, like those pretty ads and like in Subway ads. And I'm like, oh my God, who's these people?
Purple, all the one word.
Yeah, the Subway ads,
And all the Subway ads.
D2C companies.
For buying everything out.
Yeah.
So what's the business? Was there an inspiration behind the business or what?
Yeah, so the Sloth came about based on all my past experience working in a startup world and fashion and sustainable fashion. The Sloth is a mobile app that automates reselling. So post-purchase, anything that you've purchased, we integrate and find order confirmations from your inbox, and we create a closet or like a catalog of your past purchases, and we pull in all the data from web and from your email. So when you open our app, it shows you everything you've purchased, the price, size, measurements, colors, photos, and we simply reuse that data to automatically create a listing. It's in the works, but also integrating with different marketplaces so that you can have understanding of how much you can sell it for, what's the best place to sell, so just establishing that infrastructure for reselling in the e-commerce stack.
So this is only for clothing.
As of now, only for clothing because we are angel and pre-seed, and that's our niche. Yeah.
And I would sign up with my email, and then it would read all of my email and find all purchase history.
We cannot read every email for two reasons. For security. So because we're using Gmail API, that's just really difficult to achieve without just being Google, right? They're not going to let anyone read anyone's email. And second, because it just takes a lot of time to read everything. So what we do is as of now, we select brands and retailers that we want to integrate. And we develop parsers for specific retailers. So we only pick up like fashion and shopping brands emails instead of like personal ones.
Like what are those brands?
Yeah, like Nordstrom, Net-a-Porter, like Macy's, like Reformation, those like big online websites.
So basically, you search their inbox for emails from Macy's, and then so if there's 36 order
Yes.
confirmations, you then parse out, okay, you ordered in those 36 orders, you ordered 115 items.
Yeah, so even that, so we're getting a little technical here, but Macy's and Nordstrom sends a lot of promotional emails. So what we do is we actually order from them and see how they send their order confirmation email specifically
Hmm.
and figure out how can we just only detect order confirmation versus promotional email. Yeah. And then we look at the email. It's after that it's pretty simple because it's HTML, like parsing, and that's like everywhere.
Very messy.
It's very messy.
We deal a lot with email in our business. Yeah, HTML, email,
It's
HTML is
everybody have a
terrible.
different format.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you? So what do you do with it once you have all these kind of assets? What does it look like to the user?
Yeah, so they have this nice, I would like to say it's nice, grid of everything, like photos of things. And when they click it, it has the details. And then if they want to resell, we give them two ways to resell. So the one is integrating with other marketplaces like Poshmark, eBay, Mercury. And the second way is to create a page on our platform, and then they can sell by sharing it to their Instagram story, or if you have a lot of followers, TikTok, Facebook Marketplace, but it's do it yourself. But we create a closet page for you.
Do you help them if they bought an item for $121 2 years ago? Help them set the price, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so right now we are still developing and testing how accurate things are, but to the extent that we have access to the brands and the type of item, we can do kind of look at survey the current marketplaces. Because there's only so many marketplaces out there and they do have past transaction data, it is possible to give people ranges of how much their clothing will sell for. Although not always 100% accurate because you just cannot never like guarantee, but like a range is still nice.
So like how'd you come up with this idea?
Yeah, I think it was gradually developed over time. As a consumer, I just thought it was so bizarre that it was so hard for me to resell as opposed to how convenient it was to buy. Like, you can buy anything you want within 30 seconds, but reselling always took a lot of time. So that's why is it so hard? Why does it take so much time? I feel like it should be easy because I bought it on internet, right?
Yeah, and reselling takes a lot of time, because I wonder, is it the verification? I know reselling's big in high-end items which need to be verified that they're legit. That one the reason? What were the reasons it takes so much?
I think it's because selling takes work and most of consumers are lazy. We don't want to take a lot of time to take pretty photos. It's doable and a lot of people do it and that's how the marketplace works. But am I looking forward to resell clothes? No. It's a chore, it's a hassle. You have to like look up information. Secondhand, people are more curious about size, fit, and condition. So you need more information, not less. But because it's a consumer who's creating a listing, there's just less effort, less information.
Do you take the photo from the original listing and the description from the original
Yes.
listing? It's kind of like a one-click thing, and then you help them determine the price range?
Yeah, so we capture every relevant data as possible that is required that will make a seller or buyer happy. So basically, information is critical for commerce. And we are lowering the friction in resale by just capturing the original data that was available when you purchase. Data price range is a little tricky.
But then they actually ship, like Flavie lists something and I want to buy this shirt. Flavie would ship it to me. You're finished at that point once they list it.
Yeah, so we are not helping with physically shipping things out yet, but only testing with listings. Yeah.
Why'd you name it what you named it?
So this company is called a Sloth. Nice answer is that it's like an antidote to fast fashion. I help lazy shoppers. It's like slow clothing, sloth.
Oh,
A
the
real-
opposite of fast fashion.
Yeah, it's opposite of fast fashion. I thought it was memorable. It's like sloth. The second reason is that sloth in Korean it's Namu Park. It has my name in it.
I love it.
Yeah, because it literally means a creature hanging on a tree.
And it's the sloth, so it's the dash sloths plural.com.
So I just want to call it Sloth, but because it's so competitive to get the domain, I just had to like wing it. So I added a slash, and that was confusing people. So I guess I could not incorporate as the Sloth. So I did it. I added an S. Yeah.
There's a band
Like
I
the
found
giant.
out in researching this podcast. I found that there's actually a popular band called the Sloths.
Oh, really? What? Where?
I didn't listen to any of their music.
In America? Oh, that's cool. I gotta check them.
Maybe they're in Korea. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Maybe.
So cool. Okay, so I'm wondering, how do you go about building this product? Are you technical, and how do you have a co-founder? How do you go through deciding that early on, and where you at?
Yeah. So in this stage, my job is like a product manager and the UX designer. Because this was my baby, I would think about, okay, the flow. What kind of experience do I want to delight the users with initially? So that's why we start with the inbox integration. So once I decided, okay, overall, I want to make this kind of impact with the consumers. And the best impact that we made is when they integrate their inbox and we find all the stuff. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know I had this. Or like, this is so neat. Okay, I have everything that I purchased in one hand. And that's a delightful moment that I want to create for users. And then I would do research on like existing products that have a similar concept, design, layout. And I would study like why they have made these choices, like design choices, like UI choices, and try to distill it back to what would be the best for my users. And then I'm working with great engineers from Canada, and they're the genius behind all the algorithm building of the product.
You sounds like you know a lot about product and design, and I'm wondering, how did your previous job didn't have anything to do with UI and design? So
No.
how did you go from zero to knowing all this?
Doing
Yeah.
distressed
Do
pricing.
I know?
pricing.
Do I know? I think just a lot of Twitter and watching YouTube tutorial, just taking like online courses. I literally capture apps and like how they onboard users from a competitors or like similar space. And I will look at how they did it, what they did it, and think about what makes sense for me. It takes a lot of like iteration and learning and spending a lot of time. Yeah.
For someone looking to go down the same path as like currently in like distressed mortgage sales, listening to our podcast, what are those specific maybe tools or recommend?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you actually like, because product designer and manager is actually pretty different. And it took me a while for me to realize what do I enjoy more of. And as a founder, you have to do a lot. So the responsibilities get mushed. But
What's the difference?
designer thinks about actual design, like framework, how wireframes and the actual designs, and managers own the project and they have to like resources, assign roles and set deadlines and make things happen. So if it's a war, PM's like a commander, I would say. And designers actually like, I don't know, like design military clothes. I'm joking. Or weapons.
So what are those tools that maybe whether it's a designer or maybe, the manager, I'm more wondering what would be places you can learn to do that?
Yeah, I took a super high courses. So it's a great online community that have really amazing courses. And
Super high?
yeah,
I never heard of it.
super high.
Super high.
Yeah.
What a
It's
name.
amazing. I think it's called super high. Yeah. Yeah, I took the courses there, and great community, really great like designers. They have interesting programs. I recommend anyone go there. And occasionally I have one-off courses here and there from Gumroad. I find designers on Twitter and they sell courses there. So
How do you find designers on Twitter? I never find anything on Twitter. How do you find anything of like any people, like designers or engineers?
yeah, so there's a designer tweet section that if you set your interest, they aggregate all the designers. And there's really famous ones that I follow whose name I cannot recall, but they tweet every day. So you'll be exposed to once you get into that cluster of people. Yeah.
Did you if you looked at yourself 5 years ago, do you think that you had a good design eye, or did you kind of learn what good design was, what good user flow was
Yeah.
by following these people or by going through these courses?
I think I cared about design, but I didn't have the tools or skill sets per se. So I would say maybe I was a design snob and I liked looking at like pretty packages and try to understand what makes this better than the other. And actually being good at design. I'm not saying that I'm good at it, but it takes time, like learning about like principles of design, like symmetry or like spacing and all those stuff. Yeah.
That's nice. So, co-founder or no co-founder, you're the first person to come on the show that doesn't have a co-founder, and I'm wondering, like,
Yeah.
why did you decide that? Yeah, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
So I've had a couple co-founders that I've dated. So I had co-founder dating, had one divorce already.
Not actual divorce.
Not actually divorce.
Okay.
Well, just you get together, talk. It's like a dating period. You're actually courting each other, try to understand what they like, what are they looking for, can we be good partners? And I'm glad that I've done my work to try to find people. At the end of the day, things didn't work out because they just was in a different phase in their lives or wanted different things and responsibilities with the sloth. So I ultimately decided to work with an engineer because at the time I thought conflicts from having a co-founder that I wasn't 100% sure about can be more deadlier than not having one. I thought the product was reflection of my vision. An engineer, this product cannot exist without me. I can have any engineer to build it. That was okay. I wanted to start building something right away, and I found really good people. So that's why I went about just being a solo founder, which is actually not always fun.
Yeah. When you're doing kind of the founder dating, were there certain attributes you were looking for? Did you want somebody really technical? Did you want somebody with background in fashion? What were you looking for?
Yeah, I thought it's compatibility and vibe, which sounds like a soft answer, but it really was because I thought that what I'm building is technical, but not like super, super technical that you have to be like an NASA engineer, right? Like it's doable. But you just have to be able to work with me. So some things that I've learned to understand is their risk tolerance. So even though I met a lot of potential candidates from the YCs, like startup founder matching tools, I found them because they have such a good offers from other
Mm.
companies. It's hard for them to actually like commit to the startup 100%. And that's when I know that their risk tolerance is not as high as my risk tolerance.
Yeah, how do you, that's something I struggle with too, is how, when you say risk tolerance, I assume you mean like how much runway do you have before like you personally can have enough money to afford your rent, right? So yeah, how do you measure your risk tolerance and yeah, how do you think through that?
So I've bootstrapped 4 years. I have luckily have amazing angel investors today, but before then, my financier was Chase and Capital One,
Like
right?
credit card.
Yeah, and I had odd jobs here and there, just doing UX design and product marketing, like just engineering, marketing for other startups, and that's the level of risk that I took. And I do not expect anyone to put them in that position, but if they want like a lot of salary and I just cannot help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you pay yourself a salary today?
Not today, hopefully when I close this round. Because I don't want to be on a payroll unless I'm fully ready to, yeah, commit myself to be on a payroll. Yeah.
Oh, what is in an ideal world, what would you see the vision, let's say a year from now? What would you like to see, or the product or the business or yourself?
Yeah, I think of e-commerce and internet as an infrastructure. And that's where if it's like a physical world, e-commerce is like road. And today, all the highway is paved for newcomers, right? So it's easy to buy from new merchants and other businesses. All the software is built to sell and create profits, right? Shopify, Apple, like Google, everybody serve ads, and that's their business model. But there's not an infrastructure that's built in for resale automatically to the point where I think it should be like automatic, like no brainer, one click, like, and then you know where to send your clothing to. That would be the ideal vision that I hope that I build with the Sloth.
What is what are the components? It sounds like you said one click, I send it away. Would that be a middleman or somebody who kind of sits there in the middle, a market maker?
So there's two ways that I look at it. So one way involves physical aspects of logistics help, and that I cannot help. But second way is preserving demand and capturing that demand. So let's say you got this shirt in, I don't know, like Nordstrom, then the best person you can sell that to is other people who are looking at your clothing on the page. Not when you go to eBay or Poshmark, that demand is dissipated. because they have to find that listing from a listing of million other things. So today there's no way for me to capture. So the conversion on e-commerce page is like what, 2%, 1%? That 98 other people who are looking at the clothes are the best people to buy from you. And today there's no way for anyone to tell you who that is. And for them to know that you bought it and you would like to sell it back.
So then in that scenario, those people you're saying would already follow Taylor and his clothing and would be wondering like, hey, when are you going to sell this shirt? I really
Yeah,
want it.
no, so ideally what we can help. So mobile is our first product. It's our second product, but the first product that we had was Chrome extension. So that way we understand who are these users on that's using the Sloth that's buying or looking at this paper like this shirt. Then I could tell you, okay, do you want to add yourself as like a watch list or notification? And then I will like,
For the shirt.
yeah, or so it's like a match. I can do a better job of hopefully. And that's why I'm starting with a niche brands, niche audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, how do you acquire customers, right? Because yeah, how do you want to do that?
Yeah, so our initial customer target is people that I would say are underserved on existing marketplaces like Poshmark and the Real Real. So for women, when they like fashion and resell, there's major destinations: ThredUp, Poshmark, eBay, Mercari, Depop, or the Real Real and Bestier Collective for high-end luxury designers. And if you're somewhere in the middle, so if your taste and preference little advanced than maybe J. Crew or Club Monaco, I'm not saying that those are not advanced, but there are brands who people who like Meow or Eckhouse Lotta or Reformation. The price point is somewhere in between. And I would say that people who like those type of brands are underserved because if they go to the Real Real, they care about Chanel and Hermes and like luxury designers like diamond rings and really pretty expensive stuff. So I find the target demographic of people that I would like. I see where they hang out. I try to belong to the community, talk to them. I go to meetups to meet those people.
Like, what's an example? I'm curious because I get it. They have the target group, but where do they hang out? So people that buy from those retailers, give an example of a group where they hang out and the meetups and how you got to them.
Yeah, so because my target demographic is women, so I can go start with the brand's Instagram page and see if and I look at comments or likes and see click the users and see if they follow some influencers or follow any publications. And try to find an influencer, and there's certainly a group or community that's trying to monetize and grow. So I would check out if they have a Slack channel or do they have a newsletter? Can I be part of that community? Talk to people.
As in advertise in their newsletter or hire maybe it's a mini influencer that you can afford to hire, you mean? Or do you mean contribute just as a participant in a newsletter? How would you do that?
Yeah, so I am not at a phase where I am paying as of yet, just because my product is also like in private. But okay, so I won't name the organization, but I found the community, they have a Patreon where you can pay like $3 a month and then you can be on their Slack and Discord. And then I go and I see where they are hanging out. They have a book club. They have a community like sell and buy section, and I would meet up. And then the point is, I see what they're buying, get to meet women, what they think, what they say about these brands. I ask them where they buy things so
Right.
that I can, when I launch publicly, I already know who they are and what they're buying.
What's the economic model? Like, how are you going to make money? How's that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one that I'm still like trying to get clarity on. So my initial plan was, okay, if people buy on my platform, then standard percentage of transaction. There can be other ways that I can make money, but that's just currently that's where yeah. No fees for using our app. Yeah.
No fees. What can you walk through, like in your head, like what are just like a simplistic view of how the economics work? In other words, I buy a shirt it's a nice shirt, $400. What would that on average kind of resell for? Like, what would that, just like a simple story of how that would work?
Yeah, so again, depending on the brand, but let's assume that you're selling within a year or two and it's in a good condition. So for a shirt that you bought for $400, I would be assuming that brand has some kind of cachet or brand recognition. And I know what that brand sells in one marketplace, right? Because I worked in this place long enough, I can tell, okay, this brand will sell fast here and long takes a while here. So one way we can help is to the extent that we can integrate, you can post on those marketplaces on your own and they take the fee and we don't charge upfront. But if you create a page and then find if the transaction happens on our platform, then we take 10%. So let's say you resell it for $200, then that's $20 that we make from the transaction.
Is that kind of average? So if it's new $400, then you could resell it for roughly half of the price if it's within a year or two. Is that kind of rough idea?
It really depends on the brand and the condition, like how good condition, and also the trend of is it still in a trendy. We don't deal with streetwear because we're serving women first. But I know that streetwear pricing is all over the place. You're waiting for drops, price goes up, and Yeezys are down because of Kanye recently. So that's like a lot of factors that we cannot forecast, and yeah, so it's a different dynamic, I would say.
I wonder, is this, you think, a business that thrives more in a recession because people maybe don't have as much cash to spend on new clothes?
Yeah, actually, traditionally, resale and thrifting is a counter-cyclical industry, but who knows? The resale is growing really fast, and people sometimes shop and buy secondhand because they like the brands and they cannot find the specific item, like old vintage stuff, macro change that I see in the market.
Cool. Okay, so then what are the challenges? What's the biggest thing from the sloths taking over the world?
That's a big question. There's many problems and challenges. I think in one conversation, I started the sloth with wanting to not be an antidote to consumerism, right? Like I want to make secondhand shopping and reselling just as easy. At the end of the day, I still have to measure my success in sales and that's the metric that I'm still working on. So some people are like, with your product, aren't you still making people buy more stuff? Because they're like, I can resell it for this price. Well, that's like an ethical, moral question that I'm like, yeah, you're right, actually.
When you mean like consumerism, what's wrong with consumerism? Or what is consumerism? Let's start there. I'm referring to.
What a deep question. You buy things that you don't need because you're online and everybody, like technology, know what you're buying and looking at, and your influencers are selling stuff.
Right.
They're making stuff that you don't need because that's how they make money. Honestly, we don't need that many new clothes. We have so much clothes in the world, but because that's an industry, like fashion is a big industry, a lot of people depend on it. That's why we make new things and have a campaign. So it's good. I think fashion has power to make people feel like themselves. You feel good when you wear nice clothing. That's the creative and positive part of fashion. But it can be like mass production of clothing, like Shein and Fashion Nova, like very mediocre quality clothes that you can only wear a couple times and it breaks apart and it's plastic. That's not something that I want to be part of. Yeah.
So the problem is the quality of the clothes, or is it their manufacturing practices, or is it the fact that or they're like polluting or spreading a bunch of unused clothes all over the planet? Like I know every time they play the NBA finals, they have T-shirts and hats made for both teams, depending on which one wins, and then whoever doesn't win is somebody in Africa or Romania is wearing like a Celtics world champion shirt right now. Seriously, like you can see this on the street as you walk, and then eventually somebody uses it down the food chain. But I'm wondering, is part of the issue is just creating a lot of waste?
That's $1 million question. I think there's different ways of looking at it. There's factors and there's social factors. So looking at it physically, like there can be a question of what material are you using? Is it quality? And there's a lot of choices that's being made today with like polyester and wool. And you know what? Like there's no black and white answer in terms of sustainability, and like social aspect of it is like in employment and like who's the people making the clothes. One thing I noticed about fashion is that the people on the top who benefits from selling these clothes are mostly men, like CEO of Zara, CEO of Louis Vuitton, Uniqlo, all men, and they use like female labor selling to the insecurities of women. You have to look sexy and beautiful. Like you have to have these clothes. I don't know what to say. Yeah, I'm like, so going back to the problem of consumerism, it's I think the problem that I see is that like as a user, you're reduced to another data point where you're your preference and you're served ads and you are in that cycle of buying things like email campaigns. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that works. I know a lot of people whose livelihood depend on that industry and working that way. But I just had to wonder, like, I'm more than just another target in a drip campaign.
But what are reasons that somebody resells clothing? Is it the kind of socially conscious, I want somebody to use this because I'm not using it anymore, sitting in my closet? Is it they want to make money for themselves? Is it like, what are the reasons that somebody want to resell clothing?
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of different reasons depending on your preference. Maybe making some money back from clothes, want to be responsible for clothing. And the reason why I'm in resale is because reselling things is actually a responsible thing to do, right? The number one convenient thing to do is just throwing it away.
Mhm.
And like that is the reality. But when you resell, it's annoying because you have to like create a listing and deal with other people. And you probably don't get as much money back, but you are giving it to someone who wants it. And there's more chance that person enjoys or uses that clothing. So I would hope that's a more responsible way to consume and extend the life cycle of the clothing.
Are there marketplaces that buy and hold the resale clothing, or is it mostly the equivalent of person to person? I list it on Facebook Marketplace and then I sell it to you. The other ones that buy it from you, they'll buy it sight unseen. I give you $50 for that shirt. Sure, you could make 200 if you sold it on your own, but I'll buy it for. Are there
Yeah.
ones that do that?
So there's ThreadUp and the Real. So they don't pay you upfront, but they take on the clothing from you so that you can part clothing en masse and not just individual.
They take it all.
The Real has criteria and brands that they accept, and they can also decline to sell clothing depending on the condition. And ThreadUp takes in, I think, all of it, and they recycle or discard clothing for you if they do decide that it's not in the best quality to resell. That's an option for listeners out there.
Yeah, they pay less. Is that why?
Yeah, so the payout is definitely less because they have to account for the labor and the physical space that they process these clothes. So let's say if you send 10 clothes to ThreadUp and maybe you get like 50% less than what you can make on your own. The number is not accurate, but like definitely lower. Yeah.
Any other last things, questions, thoughts?
Do you have any asks of the audience, or you're fundraising right now?
Yeah. If you know any helpful angels, investors.
What have you learned through this fundraising process so far? I'm wondering, I'm thinking somebody also going down this path. Would you advise them?
I'm not done, so I feel like I'm hardly the person to answer that question. But I think fundraising is one of the hardest things that I ever had to do in my life. And it involves like asking yourself, what am I actually worthy of? Because you're asking strangers for money. And that takes a lot of confidence and courage and a lot of skill sets, like in the communication. What was I saying? It's really stereotypical answer, but
Like, what would you tell another Namu 4 or 5 years ago that's okay, I'm going to build this company, I'm going to raise money, and it's like, where do I start? How do I even, I don't know anybody.
I would tell her to go get a job in Google or Facebook and find an engineer and maybe get a degree in Stanford. I'm just kidding. I think that's probably the best. If I were to tell myself 5 years ago, I'll try to get her a job at a tech company. Yeah.
Wait, how does that help with fundraising?
Yeah, how does that help?
Because you have investors feel better about someone who's worked at like other startups because they assume that, okay, this person knows, depending on where it is, like environment of startup, they get it. They're connected to people in the industry, like they have access to other engineers, other people. If you work in startup, your boss can be an angel investor or they know someone who can help you. So you're in network. And that is like really great. Yeah.
On the other
Wow.
hand, people that do work there end up not starting companies. They end up just working there because it's so comfortable. At least it was.
Yeah, maybe not right now.
But yeah, I guess, would you really do that yourself?
I would have because I would have yes and no because the amount of when you're just on your own and doing things, you don't know what you don't know. But when you're in an organization, you have to abide by what's expected of you, and there's a manager and there's people. So it depends on like your style too. Yeah, I think. So n- in that situation, then you know what's expected of you and what skill sets you need to learn. As opposed to when you're on your own, you have to learn from going to events and meeting people like you and pitching and then failing and then scratching your head like what happened.
Yeah. How'd you find your first investors?
Ooh, I mean, first funded investor, my friend told me about him. I knew who he was, but I wasn't like a devout follower. He spoke at this like networking, like an event. I went and it was just all men and just like me. And there was two women, and one of them was his publisher, and then the other person was his PR agent. So I kind of froze. But the publisher woman, I think her name was Julie, she was like, "You should go talk to him." And she really was like encouraging me. And I went to talk to him and I'm like, "Do you advise companies?" And he said, "Only the companies that I invest." And I had a call and I
Wow.
got my first check. Yeah.
Oh man.
From cold approaching them.
Yeah, I guess.
You just walked up
I
to him.
just went to a networking event and asked him a question. Yeah. And then I pitched. Honestly, I don't think my pitch was great, but
It was good enough to get funded.
That's awesome. Cool. Any last thoughts?
No, I think this is great. And any requests of the audience?
when we launch, and if there's a female audience who wants to try, tell me the brands that you like, and we will make sure that we have an algorithm for it, so you can try and use our product.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks.
Thank you for
coming out.
having me.
Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flavio. Seize the day, own it. Until next time, hold it down, hold it down. Hey.